Good evening, y'all. Hope you've had a wonderful day. Today I'm going to talk about coping mechanisms. A lot of people have a lot of different ways to, to deal with life and the unpleasantness we all have to live with. For me, for a very long time, I used books to escape from reality. I didn't have anyone I could ever confide in. So I went ahead. Excuse me, tired tonight. I used my books and reading to get out of this world into something more enjoyable and, maybe not all the times better, but definitely more interesting. As a kid, from as long as I can remember, and my parents told me, even before I can remember, that I always wanted to be able to read. So when I did start reading, I was voracious. I would all the time be going to the library, getting books, and just reading. And it helped me deal with the fact that my life was less than pleasant. As I got older, my way of coping with the fact that I didn't like myself and that I didn't feel I was good enough, I used my capacity for love for others to escape from dealing with that. From the time I got married the first time until 2016, I was, oh God, sorry. I was never really alone at all as an adult. I always had my spouse, and if I was not focused on my spouse, I was, always focused on my children. Showing them the love and affection that I had was a way to keep from thinking about my hatred of myself. And over these long years, my biggest escape has always been gaming. Console games I've always had fun with. But in the late 90s, the very first MMORPG came out. It was called The Realm. And, we only had dial-up to get onto the internet. So, go to log into the game and you'd be in a queue until, it was your turn to enter the game. And sometimes that would take a while, but, that's just the way things worked back then. But it was definitely a game that I really loved. When I first started playing it, I went a week with like 2 or 3 hours of sleep and just played that game 24/7 almost. My life at the time was one of the worst. I was in one of the worst relationships I've ever had, and with my own back issues and not being able to work, that escape was my lifeline to the outside world. I could get on there and socialize with people and make friends that I didn't even have to leave house for. And then, after that game came out, then EverQuest, Asheron's Call, World of Warcraft, you know, the MMORPG games just started really taking off. I did enjoy playing EverQuest. And when I met my last husband, he played Asheron's Call, so I actually got on that for a while and played some with him. But I never got into World of Warcraft. It just, I don't know, it never really spoke to me, so I stayed away from it. But, after a while, I got tired of those, and I would stop playing, and then I started finding online games on my phone and tablets. There's literally tons of games that you can escape into. Mage Realm was one I was really heavily into for a while. League of Angels, War Dragons, Merge Dragons. I mean, just pretty much. I was always searching for that next fun thing to use as my escape from dealing with my own inadequacies. I during all that time, of course, I had my family, I had my spouses, my kids. But in 2016, that's when I started living alone. I was still married, but we didn't live in the same household, and I kind of stopped getting online a lot because of everything I was dealing with at the time, and I went into isolation. Basically, anytime I needed to go out, I would have severe panic attacks. I would have breakdowns for no reason and just not be able to cope. So once I started living alone, I pretty much gave up getting online because I couldn't handle it. And that's when I started addressing all the issues that gaming helped me escape from. I started counseling, and yeah, I wasn't in that counseling for a very long time, but it was intense, and it did help, um, but mainly just being alone 24/7 with just my cats and very little contact with the outside world. It helped me learn to be okay without seeking approval from everyone else. You know, my entire adult life, I've always been the one that will conform to what others think I should be. You know, I get married, okay, I'm supposed to be a good wife and a good mother, so that's the role I took on. You know, with friends, okay, I'm supposed to be a good friend, so therefore that's what I'm going to do. And, you know, the real me, I consistently shove down into a box and just sealed shut because in my own mind, the real me wasn't good enough for anybody. So I conformed to what everybody else expected, whether it be my spouses, my children, or my employers. I lost myself in playing the roles that I was in. And after living alone, I'm no longer, I've opened that box that I stuffed myself in. And, you know, in 2016 was the first time that I did something crazy with my hair. You know, I've always colored my hair, but it's usually always been, you know, blonde or maybe strawberry blonde. And in 2016 was the first time I colored it something like this now. Because, you know, having bright pink or bright blue or, you know, multicolored hair wasn't acceptable, I guess, in at that time. And, you know, certainly your employers would not tolerate somebody showing up to work like this. And, you know, I finally stopped caring what everybody else thought and what everybody else expected of me. And I started doing for me. You know, from the time these colors have come out, I wanted to try them for the longest time, and I was afraid to. And finally, I just realized, nobody else has to like it but me. And guess what? If I don't like it, my hair is short enough that it'll grow out quickly and I can cut it off and I don't have to ever do it again. But what's the harm of trying? And from that point on, I'm the lady with the weird colored hairs. Every, 6-8 months, I've got new hair color. And that's okay because I find enjoyment in it. I do it myself. And I have fun with it. I bleach my hair. And then once the bleaching's done, then I, do whatever I feel like. Whether it's one color, I've had it, kind of half and half that way. I've had it half and half this way. At one point, I had it 3 colors. I had one color up top, one on the side, and one on this side. So it's fun to go through and just enjoy the process and, do it knowing that I don't have to have anybody else's approval. I can do this because it brings me joy. And, since then, that has been my main focus, is learning how to be, quote unquote, me. Because I didn't know the real me for a very long time. And I certainly didn't like the real me. So therefore, that's why I stuffed it down in a box. Because, when you don't like yourself, you never feel good enough. And, if I can assume a persona that other people find pleasing, then, of course that's what I was going to do. But now with my therapy and living alone, the real me has started coming through a lot more strongly. I have taken the time to apologize to those that I've hurt. I have openly admitted to and apologize for my parts in relationships failing, because I know if I want to be a better person, I have to admit that it wasn't always them that caused the problems. I was also part of it. And I took the time and apologized to 2 of my spouses. Well, I should say ex-spouses, for my part in the failure. And I felt better after doing that, because you know, yeah, I'm alone, and I can easily start a new relationship. But if I'm the same old me that I was in those failed relationships, then anyone that I start now would ultimately fail, because it would be the same tortured, flawed me going into it with unrealistic expectations. And until I'm really good with myself, I'm okay being by myself. It's a work in progress. And a year ago, the person I was then, thinking back and looking back, I barely even recognize myself from that point, because of the progress that I've made. I no longer escape into games or books. I love to read. That'll never change. I love to game. But it is now not the escape, it's just the enjoyment that I use it for. And, knowing that there's a big difference has really helped bring some clarity to myself. You can't fix your problems by escaping them. And I realized that. So now I pay more attention to what I need in my life, what I don't need in my life, and just how to be a better person than I was yesterday. I don't want to go back to being the person that hid from the world. Yeah, maybe I don't like the world I'm living in, but I do live in it, and I do need to be engaged in it. And I take steps daily to keep myself involved. Yeah, I will readily accept criticism, but when it comes to compliments, I get very uncomfortable. And I never really knew I was doing it, but every time I'd say something personal, I would follow it up with a laugh, kind of. Anytime I made any kind of statement, it would be said in a laughing manner, because for a long time, I was told that I was an idiot, that I didn't have a clue, that I had no capability of understanding. And I believed it. So anything I ever said, I said with a laugh. That way I could say, oh, I was just joking, whether I was or not. And I've I still do it a lot. I notice myself still doing it. But I certainly don't do it all the time anymore, because I do know I am a strong, smart, intelligent, independent woman. And just because others may think me an idiot doesn't mean I have to agree with them. And I don't, because I know better. And so, we all have lots of ways of coping with stress, with life, with failure, and being hurt. But once you realize that you're using those as coping mechanisms and escaping reality, you really can start to put them aside and start being the more honest version of yourself, rather than the persona you've created to make yourself feel more accepted. It's not easy. It takes a lot of hard work, a lot of self-reflection to truly come to grips with the amount of coping mechanisms you may have. But it's worth the fight. And my biggest message is you are enough. You are worthy, and you are loved, just as you are. No amount of conforming will make you any better than you are now. Because at this moment, you are enough. And we have to tell ourselves that every day, because we're trying to combat a lifetime of not only others, but of our own minds telling us we're not worthy, we're not enough, we're nothing if we're not playing the part that we're supposed to be playing. And we torture ourselves with those thoughts because they're not true. So, I hope my rambling makes a little bit of sense to y'all. I wholeheartedly encourage you to take the time to examine yourself and focus on yourself and not live in the mold that somebody has put you in. Because I can guarantee you, once you break out of those molds and you start being yourself, you're gonna shine. And you're gonna shine brighter than you ever have in your life. Because you are enough just as you are. And nobody should ever take that away from you. We give up that control way too easy a lot of times. And once we take it back, our lives get immeasurably better and happier. And I hope we can all come to that point in our lives that we can just enjoy and stop torturing ourselves with thoughts that aren't true. So, that is going to be it for tonight. Getting real tired, as if you couldn't tell at the beginning. I thank you wholeheartedly if you've listened to this. And I hope it can make you realize exactly how wonderful you are. So I will say a very fond farewell. I love y'all immensely. And I hope you all have a good night. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye.